at $250 a month, you could literally change your life within like 4 to 6 months, because it takes about 2 to 3 months for job placement, 4 months of training, and then 90-day action plan to get that first job and get your foot in the door.
Terry Kim, welcome to the Comfort, Peace, and Freedom podcast. How are you doing today?
I am doing fantastic, Ken. Thanks for asking.
Absolutely. So you have an interesting story, and I can't wait to get to it. Talk about the American dream, and the American dream is not dead; it's very much alive. And I so much believe in that story. I believe in all of it, because in many ways, I kind of did that myself, and blazed our own trails as we have. And it's so funny that people think that your future is predetermined, or you have to listen to what the masses tell you. You need to do this and you need to do that in order to make this happen, in order to make that happen. And it's just so, it's been so ingrained in our DNA, that there's only a few paths to be successful. And you, like me, you're absolute proof that that is not the case. And I can't wait to get into it. So first off, would you consider yourself having some entrepreneurial tendencies? And if so, tell us how that all works.
Yeah, so my journey was, at least my career path was breaking into IT. In 1999, I watched the movie The Matrix, and that really sparked, I would say, like a passion inside deep within me that said, wow, I feel like this is the future. Like technology is going to be, this is like before the Y2K bug.
Right.
Literally.
Yeah.
And I mean, like Yahoo, MSN, it's like those ICQ days with the messenger. Like it was just like fascinating. And I never touched a computer until 21. And the irony I talk about in my book is, I thought I wanted to be, a professional music world famous DJ. And I got into the K-pop scene, and I was literally in the music industry when, my life completely changed around when my now ex-wife got pregnant with our first child. And I started looking at my career in a different perspective. And I was kind of worried about, how do I take care of the hospital bills when this baby comes? And so that took me down this rabbit hole of like, all right, maybe I need to pivot into a career that is promising and secure for my future family. And I tried to get a job in IT in the MIS department at the hotel I was working at, called Dragon Hill Lodge in Yongsan. It's an army post, and it's like a 4-star hotel. And
okay,
I remember those like shiny lights behind the MIS department, which is Management Information Systems at the time. And they kept saying like, I don't have enough experience and that I need to at least get a college degree. And I think that's what's been rooted fundamentally into our public education system, but also from the previous generations, like my family, saying, hey, yeah, college is a good alternative route. And the funny thing is, Ken, I actually dropped out of high school. In 9th grade, I have a 2-month high school education, and I ended up getting my GED. And the long story short is I took a couple college classes at University of Maryland Asian Division. And as soon as I was in those classes, I knew this is not how I learn. Like, I'm a practical learner. I'm a hands-on learner. And I quickly realized, like, I don't want to wait 4 years to break into this IT field. So I ended up building my first custom PC. I went to the Yongsan Seoul electronic market, bought all the pieces to the computer. Like the case. I felt like I was like a kid in a candy store, because this technology was just like mind-blowing to me at that age. And I was like, let me just build my first PC. And once I built my first PC, it gave me the confidence and boost to say, I want to get my hands dirty. How do I get an internship? How do I get an entry-level job? And with just being in Seoul, Korea, I decided that I wanted to join the Air Force, because I wanted to join the military because, one, medical is 100% free. And then two, my dad is an Army military veteran. And he said, son, if you want to get into tech, do not join the Army like I did. But there's another branch called the United States Air Force that are super techy, and you should look into that. And so I dove in, looked into that career field, and contacted a recruiter. The closest U.S. Air Force recruiter was in Okinawa, Japan. And I talked to that recruiter and said, hey, I want to get into the tech field. And I waited 6 months. I studied hard for my ASVAB on electrical engineering and mathematics. And you had to score high to get into a communications field. Now it's called the Cyber Ops Command. 3 Delta is the MOS for that career. And I joined the Air Force, and I cut my teeth in the Air Force. And I talk about this in the book, where at 21, I started on the help desk and worked my way up to a network engineer, and then eventually became a top technical instructor on Keesler Air Force Base for a couple years until I got out. And when I got out, that's when my entrepreneurial journey actually began.
Well, that is I mean, talk about, there's so much to unpack there. I mean, that's 3 podcasts in one. Your answer there, which is fantastic. So first off, I agree with you that being a DJ would probably not be the best fatherhood move, because I was just in Las Vegas for the F1 Formula One race. And as I was ready to go to bed at 12:30 or 1 o'clock in the morning, all the DJs were just firing up, and all the people were just getting to them to start at 1 o'clock in the morning. So yeah, I can, even though they're very successful, I think you made the right move as far as fatherhood goes. So yeah, I think there's so many great things to know there. So in my world, I'm a blue collar entrepreneur. Okay. And this thing about you have to go to college to be successful. Okay. If you get good grades in high school, and if you get a scholarship to college, and if you go to school and get a degree, and if that degree, lands you some great job, then you can start living your life. And I have to tell you, colleges are really, really good, and this, at marketing themselves as the only option. I mean, it's us or else. And that's never been true. It hasn't been true in the history of our country, and it isn't true today. Half the population of the United States working today, 77 million of them still do something with their hands. And to say that college is the only path is crazy. I know that in your case, I know a bunch of fighter pilots. Okay. They all went into the Air Force. They have amazing careers. They've learned a ton. They've gotten great benefits, and some of them are even moonlighting as pilots for Delta or whatever. So the bottom line is, there's military, there's apprenticeships, there's tech schools, trade schools. They're just working for somebody right out of high school and learning from them like a mentorship. And then there's college. And you talk about the amazing opportunity that you had, and you took the military route. So what's your thoughts on parents who think, oh my gosh, I have to steer my kid to college or I didn't do my job here?
What I say to that is, think about what is the alternative. Because if you send your child to college, they're taking advanced, basically high school courses on a next level advanced for 2 years. That's a general studies. And it's like when you join the military and we're trying to make you become a network field engineer or cybersecurity analyst, we're not putting you under 2 years of general studies to go learn history and economics and accounting and all that BS. And it's like, it's so indoctrinated. And so you have to ask yourself, what if there's a better way? And what I found, at the peak of my career at Cisco Systems, I reached the American dream. A high school dropout working at Cisco at the highest engineering level was just mind-blowing to me. And when I got to that state, and I'm like actually in meetings with CIOs and VPs and people running large Fortune 500 companies, and they're responsible for their IT products and services, it just astonished me how many people, or how much management couldn't really rely on the college grads to come in and hit the ground running. And so I say, what's wrong with the college applicants? Well, they would say, Terry, these guys don't even know how to configure a switch port, just rudimentary basics when it comes to the IT field. They don't know how to configure a phone or configure a switch port or configure a firewall policy. And I saw ITT Tech at the time in 2016. They were like at peak, I think they were doing 800 million on the NASDAQ as a publicly traded company until they got shut down by the government. And so they left 35,000 students stranded in 2016 because they weren't able to deliver on their promise. And so, Ken, you hit it on the head. You know, in the past decade, $1 trillion in student loan debt. And we at NGT Academy, 50% of our students come to us drowned in student loan debt, have that IT degree, but still can't break into the field. The reason is they don't have hands-on training. And if they have any hands-on training, it might be 5-10% of their curriculum. So if you're a parent listening to this, imagine, I guess the perfect kind of analogy or metaphor would be, imagine if you wanted to send your son to 4 years of college to become a truck driver. That would be ludicrous, or a hairdresser, or a car mechanic, right? Like there are professions like being a lawyer or a doctor or a scientist. Yeah, go the college route, right? That is the path. But when it comes to these technical training path or technical career path, it's about the hands-on. It's about doing the actual work. So we really just flipped the script, you know, where our curriculum is based on hands-on. 80% of our training is hands-on. It's practical. It's real-world skills-based, just like the military, the way we taught these 18, 19 high school students to become job ready in 4 months. So that was the big realization, is like, we need to create a company that can really help relieve student from student debt, but also give them an alternative path. And so our whole mission is, you don't need to go to college for 4 years. It's just 4 months. So 4 months versus 4 years. And we've taken like truck drivers, we've taken loan officers, we've taken bike riders, we've taken forklift drivers. We've taken a forklift driver, Kieron Taylor, drowned in 25,000 in student loan debt, dropped out on his sophomore year and said, this is not how I learn. I don't want to put myself into more debt. So he dropped out of college and actually gave up on his dream of becoming an IT professional until he found us in our Zero to Engineer program. And within 9 months, we got him a job at Google. Now he's a senior manager on Google's wide area network infrastructure team. And so that kind of shows you what's possible when you can train students to become job ready by focusing on the practical training, the apprenticeship style kind of training with mentorship.
You know, so, it's interesting that you say that, because I just heard this the other day. An interviewee walks into an interviewer's office and he says, yeah, I'm here for the job. And the guy says, hey, you know, just so you know, we want you to forget about all that stuff you learned in college, because we're going to treat you and train you the way we want you to do our work here. And the kid said, well, that's great, because I didn't go to college. And the guy said, well, then I'm sorry, you're not qualified to work here. so it's really insane. I mean, when I did research for my book, one of the things that I came across, which was shocking to me, 40% of kids go to college without any idea why they're going. 4 out of 10.
Wow.
A quarter of those kids end up changing their major after a year or two. Another waste of money.
Yep.
And only 1/3 of the college degree earners ever use their degree ever in their lifetime.
That's correct.
So it's, you know, I wrote this open letter to parents and I said, understand something. I get it. I'm a parent too. You birthed your child, you raised your child, you clothed them, you fed them, you bathed them, you sheltered them, you taught them what you could. And now somehow you believe, or have been hoodwinked into thinking, the only way you can call yourself a good parent is to finish them off with a degree on the wall. But what if that degree is actually hurting them in the process? Okay. I talk about the $400,000 swing, and you'll appreciate this. So a 4-year degree, $50,000 a year, all in, and I mean everything, all in, $200,000 when you're done. Hopefully you didn't borrow that money. You can do something like what you're talking about, or even go out into the field where people are willing to train you while you earn. You can earn $50,000 or $60,000, $70,000 a year right now. Over that period of time, that's a $400,000 swing from negative to the positive, right? So you at least have to think about that before you put people into that situation. Again, with the debt, especially for those learners who are more tactile and don't learn the way or aren't passionate about just going to school to learn how to play beer pong and have hangovers on the weekends, right?
That's
So
correct.
that's what's so exciting about your academy, and that's where I want to get to next. Um, it's the NGT Academy. I see that great sign behind you on the wall. Next generation training. Tell me about how that differs from the college experience. I know that the timing is there, but how did you come about? Where did this idea come from? I love the idea, and then how do people get involved with it?
Absolutely. So the idea came when I was at Cisco, and then I moved to another company called Arista Networks. And it was during that time, there was a lot of managers, asking me to refer them some good engineers. And it was just like a repeated conversation. And then I started researching the college education system. And it just dawned on me, like me and my co-founder, we both were instructors. He taught for 5.5 years. I taught for 2 years. And we had to teach and get students job ready and through practical training. So think about like the hardest professions to kind of learn new skills that are high demand was back in the day in 2000 when I joined the Air Force was my career field, 3C2, a tech controller working in the communications. So imagine if you have to train 18-year-olds to get them job ready so they can set up mission critical networks where
Wow.
life and death might be on the line, right? So
Wow.
it's like the standard of the training is just so high caliber. And we knew that we can train people in months rather than years. And so that's when it clicked on me, even through my experience, that college is a total scam when it comes to charging parents or even the student $100,000 to $200,000 so they can hang this diploma with hardly any practical training. It's all textbook heavy. Needless to say, the 2 year of general studies they have to do. And that's why also students have that grace period to figure out what do I want to do with my life? What is my career path? Well, they should be figuring that out in high school,
Right.
not in college where they're wasting parents' money at $50K a pop a year with room and board and all in. I've met parents where they've taken 2 mortgages out of their home equity line to fund their kids to go to college. And then think about the parents that don't have the money, like my parents didn't really have the money to send me to college. And so now you have students that are just signing 100, 200K student loans.
Right.
They don't even know what they're getting into. And then by the time they graduate, they have this massive student loan debt that they have to pay off when there's an alternative path. And even without NGT Academy, you could self-learn in today's environment. You can take courses on Udemy. You can take, free courses on YouTube, for crying out loud. Get a few IT certifications and break into that first entry-level job. My first entry-level job coming out of the Air Force paid only $28,000, right? But in 2 years, I broke 100K. And then within 4, I got to 175 plus stock options. And every major tech company wanted to recruit me because I got there. And I got there in the civilian sector in literally 4 years. So imagine if you take this alternative path, you could be breaking 6 figures. We took a bike rider at 60 years old in New York City, making $400 a week. He comes to NGT Academy. In 9 months, he's a cybersecurity consulting analyst for Accenture. And if you don't know who Accenture is, they're one of the top 4 consulting firms. So how does an Accenture hire someone at 60 years old, pay him $102,000 right out the gate without any prior IT experience? Because the training is phenomenal. Our training is what sets us apart. We do fundamental and foundational training within 60 days. Not 2 years of general studies, 60 days to get your IT fundamental knowledge grounded. It's like the foundation if you're building a house. Once we lay the foundation down, we assign you 3 capstone projects where you get to architect, plan, design, implement, hands-on, an entire infrastructure refresh for a simulated IT company, right? And these capstone projects is what elevates their skills. They get the context, they learn, they learn and they apply. It's like the 80-20 Pareto rule, right? Doing the actual training that's going to give them 80% of the job readiness skills. And that's how we differentiate ourselves. And then after 4 months of training, we assign them a career coach. And what do we help them with? We help them with interviewing. We help them with their cover letter, their resume. We also help them with their LinkedIn personal branding, how to be appealing to recruiters and companies, and how to go about in the open job market, because it's not about lack of open jobs. Right now, there's 572,000 open cyber jobs just in the USA alone.
Right.
So it's huge. The opportunity is massive, and it's unfortunate. Our company has lack of brand awareness. Even though we've been around 7 years, not every parent is understanding that there is this alternative path. Whether it's a coding bootcamp, whether it's an IT academy like ours, there are alternative paths to break into any career much faster, especially here in 2023.
And that's the thing that I think is so important. Okay. Whenever I tell this story about the $400,000 swing or anything, even the stories that we're talking about today, the first thing I get from the reactions of the parents is, well, why didn't anybody ever tell me that? Well, this is the first time I'm hearing about this. Well, if you think about it, by the time you put your feet on the floor when you get out of bed in the morning to the time you get to your office or church or school, or wherever you're going, you've crossed 10,000 blue collar jobs that are still viable today, and more viable than ever because of a supply and demand thing where everyone's going to school for these bland liberal arts degrees they can't use, and no one's picking up a hammer or a shovel, or in your case, a keyboard or whatever anymore. They're just not doing that. So yeah, I do a lot of contributing for Fox News channel, and I was on there 3 times last week just to cover this one topic. And the topic was 67% of companies polled said that the kids are getting out of college no good. Okay. They can't do anything. They're wholly disappointed in the experience of trying to pull these kids out of school and hire them. And it's simply because they're growing up staring at screens all day long. They're not getting practical hands-on knowledge. They're not doing the type of discovery that you did, where you said, you know what, I'm going to go to an electronics shop, buy some parts, put something together, follow this passion and see where it leads me. So again, this is something that I hope is starting to turn. The good news for what you're doing is that there is still this supply and demand upheaval because of colleges are really good at marketing themselves. Kids aren't experimenting and discovering like you did. They're taking these safe kind of cushioned routes.
For sure.
And society just isn't pushing them to be aggressive and to do these types of things. So I don't think it's going to change anytime soon, but that bodes really well for people that come to you and into your academy, because again, I'm assuming that 4 months, obviously that's a lot shorter than 4 years. I'm assuming that that what you charge them is somewhat less than a huge college degree.
$10,500 is our tuition.
Wow. Yeah, that is incredible. So
and the monthly payment plans, when you finance that, it's about like $250. So at $250 a month, you could literally change your life within like 4 to 6 months, because it takes about 2 to 3 months for job placement, 4 months of training, and then 90-day action plan to get that first job and get your foot in the door.
So $10,000 to potentially land you a $102,000 gig. Okay. Let's flip that to where it is now. $200,000 to get you a $55,000 gig because there's too many of you, they overproduced you, and now there's no market for you, right? What a crazy turn of events that is. I'm assuming that you have to be just absolutely in love with what you do, number one, and number two, you just have to revel at the graduations and where they go and what they do, right? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Absolutely. Like at our company, our mission is about changing lives. It's not about providing technical training. NGT Academy is a transformational company. We transform people's life. And if you break it into a lucrative career in IT, especially cyber or networking, um, you're set for life. Like I could have stayed at Cisco and got millions in stock options, if I stayed 40 years there, right? Like your career is set for life. Like technology is advancing so fast right now. And I just read another report. Like there's like $8 trillion in cyber damages that is going to occur just in 2023 alone.
Yeah.
So the need for more IT professionals, especially with cybersecurity practices, is needed in this world. And, I want to fast track this mission, which is changing 1 million lives by 2030. We've enrolled about 50 plus thousand students over the course of the last 7 years. And the reason I wrote this book was just to tell my story so people can understand there is a alternative path. And we also give you the CompTIA Network Plus course absolutely free. So you could buy this book. Well, actually, this book, go to zerotoengineer.com/book, and you just pay for shipping. You just pay $9.95 for shipping anywhere in the world. And guess what? Just this book alone, you can break into the IT field with your first job. You don't even have to come to NGT Academy. That's how powerful this book is. If you're listening to this and you have no money and you want to pick yourself up and break into this field, I'm telling you, this book is all you need. And then once you get that first job, come back to NGT Academy and we'll upskill you into a higher paying 6-figure position. And that's what we do also with like 25% of our students that are stuck in these help desk roles and they don't know how to move up the ladder. We upskill them with our training, and then they go from help desk to engineer. And you can see 2 to 4x income jumps from that alone.
So let's get to the book after this one question, because I think this is important. Parents, I think, are the traffic cops when it comes to their kids, what they do. You know what I mean? They're
Yep.
like, between the kids and college, they're like the traffic cops, or the kids in their first job, the kids in your academy, the kids in whatever. So I just want parents to know that if you're going to brag about your kid, okay, if you're going to brag about how good your child is, it is not by showing people pictures of degrees that they have hung on the wall. Okay. If you want to brag about your kid, drive the people you're bragging to their house. Look at what they've accomplished. Look at how they live. Okay. Look at how independent they are financially. Look at how independent they are thinking wise. Look at how they might own their first house and have 1/10 of the debt that some of these college kids have, and they're happy because they've jump started their life. They know what they want their life to look like. They're making decisions that make their lives better for themselves. They can see what their future is. If you're going to brag about your kid, that's what you brag about. Okay. No one ever rolled up into my driveway and said, "Wow, what degree do you have?" You know what I mean? They all said, "Hey, Ken, how did you grind this life out?" And I'm happy to tell them that because it's a great story and I love doing it. I wouldn't change a thing. I'm a ditch digger. Okay. I wouldn't change a thing about that. And it's helped me to get into all these other processes. So I just want parents to understand that your scorecard is a happy, independent, financially sound kid, not a degreed kid. Okay. Not that they're mutually exclusive, but I think you get what I'm saying here. So let's move on. You woke up one day and you said, "I'm going to write a book," or how did that happen for you?
Well, it was really around just how do we impact and change more lives? How do we build enough brand awareness where, we show up on more people's radars, and especially the young ones. Like we we train a lot of mid-career change guys like that want to just switch careers, and they might be 30 to 40 years old, right? I want to make the impact going after the 21-year-olds. Like this is a program I would have signed up for in a heartbeat.
Sure.
And I wouldn't even had to join the Air Force. And so like this is the true alternative path that is tried and true and tested. And we want to scale this. So this is what urged me to write this book and get this out to the masses. And that's why I decided to write this book. And It didn't take me a year to write this book. I wrote this book in 1 week. I got a cabin up north in Arizona in the winter, and I just went to town and knocked it out in a week because it is just poured out of my heart. Like, it's my story, but it's also I openly share all the strategies and tactics inside this book without holding back anything. It's all insider, call it insider secrets, whatever you want to call it, but it's my 20 years of IT experience without holding anything back. And it's all inside here, the industry, the landscape, the ecosystem. I talk about frameworks that I've used to propel my career, how I broke six figures, and so on and so on.
So a couple of things there. So I have a course that I have my book Blue Collar Cash has a course. It's an 8-week course. It's literally 45-minute sessions 8 times. Okay. And this course is designed to do what we're talking about right now, which is position them to understand that there is, you know what you want your life to look like. Nobody else does. Okay.
Yep.
So why are you following everyone else's directions or their preconceived societal norms or expectations? Right. You know what your favorite car is, your favorite house is, your favorite pet is, your favorite vacation would look like, your favorite spiritual moment, your favorite charity moment, your sports, your hobbies, your health, all of that. You know that. So why are you laying that off on someone else to help you decide what that's going to be, right? Draw that picture, get it in front of you, and then chase it. So what I do is I position people to say, okay, now that my head's in the right place and I know what I want my future to look like, how am I going to go do that? And then they would come to you. Okay. I'm like, this is how you dream, how to do it, how to get there, how to see it. Now let's go find a path to getting there. I am definitely going to include your course in my links to try to steer people towards what you do, because this is so much needed and you have hit such a niche, and I know you know that, and 50,000 students can't be wrong, right? So again, tell us how someone would actually go about engaging. Do they have to go somewhere? Is it all an online thing? Is there meetings one-on-one? How does all that work?
Yes. So the program is self-paced with weekly live coaching. And so there's certain milestones you have to achieve, and also in-house and external certifications. For example, our network engineer and cybersecurity program, that's our flagship. You can earn up to 9 certifications. It's typical that our students earn about 3 to 4 certifications before they go into the job market. And that certification process, we treat like the Cisco, Microsoft, CompTIA, all these kind of commodity certs. We call them commodity certs because there's a lot of paper certified people in the open job market. What I mean by paper certified, they have the diploma and they might have a few certifications, but they have 0 hands-on training or practical experience. So they fail to get that job because they fail on the technical interview. What people don't realize, when you go after an IT job, you get the general interview around personality and things like that, strengths, weaknesses, sure. But there's a second part of that interview process, step 2, where you're going to be interviewing with a peer engineer or someone more technical, and they're going to start asking you technical stuff. And if you're just book smart, like, you're not going to pass the technical interview portion, where our students just smash through the technical because they realize, whoa, like, you know a lot. Why? Because they have the context, they have the practical training, and they have most importantly, project-based training. So all of our training is around project-based. That is 100% transferable when you hit the job, and you can just start on day one and start adding value to the organization, versus maybe you have to wait a year if you're a college student just to ramp up. Like you mentioned earlier, oh, don't worry, forget what you learned in college, we'll train you. Why? Because they don't have any practical. So if you want to get started with us, it's self-paced. We have a lot of adult learners that have full-time jobs. And so if you do 20 hours a week, you will graduate our program in about 4 to 6 months. And what's nice is that if you ever get stuck, we have weekly live coaching on every project and every kind of section of the journey. And so that could be 60 to 90 minutes. If you need more one-on-one, especially with career services, we do a ton of one-on-one. And with students that are stuck on certain projects, we also offer one-on-one. So it's it's very efficient, and it's go at your own pace. And that's the beauty of this kind of self-paced learning with weekly live coaching that makes the model work.
All for $10,500.
All for 10.5.
I mean, talk about investment. You know, this is going to sound really crazy, so just bear with me, okay?
Yeah.
What I'm learning from you is, and I know, again, not that you would want to ever do this, but is it possible that if you stood next to a surgeon without any prior experience, and you stood next to him for a year and watched everything he did, and then he let you try some stuff, and then you did some stuff, and he did some stuff, isn't it possible you could learn to do surgery?
I believe absolutely yes, in my
Right?
experience, because that's how I learned. How did I become an engineer? I basically started shadowing a lot of the vendor engineers, because the vendors were super smart. And every Fortune or any company, you're getting sold these products from Amazon, from Cisco. And so they have a channel partner. That's how they get their products in front of customers. And the fastest way to learn is to shadow someone, like you said, to look over their shoulder. And I forget what this modality of learning is called, but basically it's the number one method of learning a new skill. When you can shadow, when you can see what they're doing, and then you apply that, you do it yourself. It's like cooking. Would you go to a 4-year freaking college to become a chef? No, you're going to go to culinary school. You're going to start chopping those tomatoes. You're going to start mixing the ingredients. It's the same thing with IT. You need to get your hands dirty.
Yeah. And again, I'm not suggesting that we go out there and have a bunch of people that just learn surgery by standing next to a surgeon, but I'm trying to make a shocking point.
Yes.
And that is, I would bet you that you could actually pull that off. I would bet you that you could learn how to replace a knee by standing next to a surgeon and shadowing him for a period of time until you got to the point where you interchanged, jobs, and he allowed you to do it and you allowed him or her to do it. And then finally you just did it supervised by him. The point that I'm making is, Apple Computer hired 50% of their people a few years ago without any college degree, because they realized they wanted them to know what they wanted them to know. Okay. So, again, I know I'm not anti-college. If you're going to, let's take that example. If you're going to operate on my shoulder so I can get back out on the golf course, I want you to know everything there is to know about a knife before you come at me with it. I get that. Having said that, practical hands-on learning like the kind that you're doing is an absolute replacement for a 4-year degree where you come out never having screwed a screw or burned soldered a connection or whatever, right?
That's correct. Yeah. It's stunning, and it's so shocking to me why this hasn't even picked up more mainstream. But you nailed it when you talked about Google or Apple. Actually, Google, Apple, Tesla, there a couple years ago, they all made announcements that college degree is no longer a requirement for the next generation workforce coming into their environment, because they quickly realized that they could better train, maybe with an in-house onboarding apprenticeship style kind of program, like Google announcing their Google certificate program, so they can hire more people on the support level and then upskill them. So we're starting to see a shift. The problem is that, like you said, college has just so much massive marketing, and it's indoctrinated. By the time they're a senior, everyone has FOMO, right? Fear of missing out, going to college, all their friends are going to college. And so it's this race to hurry up and go to college. And that's indoctrinated in the high school system. And that's very hard to crack. We try to go after like high school students, 18, 19-year-olds, and had hardly any success. The 18, 19-year-olds that come to our school are the ones that are in low income families.
Right.
And then they give us a shot. But 90% of the students that, have a 529 from their parents' savings, or their parents have saved up college money, they're not thinking about this alternative path. They're just stuck, that they're gonna, not stuck, but they're already on that path from like 16 years old, that they're gonna go to college. So it's hard to deprogram that in these family environments.
Well, I can tell you the way to change that, and you're doing this. The way to change that, in my opinion, is for you to start really putting out there the success stories of the people that you've trained and you've gotten. I mean, when people start to see, this kid's making 100K plus on a $10,000 investment in 4 to 6 months, okay, plus some polish after that. I mean, it has to change some hearts and minds, because, like I said before, at the end of the day, if you want to be a proud parent, show them how your kid's living, not necessarily what they know. Okay, because that, in my mind, is the real nirvana that we should all be chasing. What I call comfort, peace,
Absolutely.
and freedom. That's the real triangle of really what you should be after. I have to tell you, this has been such a pleasure having this conversation. I really cannot believe that 45 minutes has gone by so fast. At the end of my book at Blue Collar Cash, I always talk about something called comfort, peace, and freedom. And it stems back from when my daughter got sick and I was writing her a letter, and that's how the book came about. But one
Mm.
of the things I always ask everybody, and you can't use work as an example here. Okay. You have to drop work now, for example. So where do you find, where would you find the most peace, Terry?
I find the most peace when I'm in my meditative or prayer state. So I have a daily practice of morning gratitude and prayer and meditation. Um,
Beautiful.
I've done this for like, I would say in the past couple years, it's been very devotional. I got pretty sick during the COVID days in 2019, and I started looking at holistic medicine and alternative paths, because my doctor was trying to put me on this injection shot that just got FDA approved to address some of my health issues. And um, I almost signed that paperwork, Ken, and right before reading through all the fine print, I was like, these side effects are just, this is insane. I'm not going to inject myself with a shot in my thigh for the rest of my life, because
Right.
he's telling me this disease is incurable, that I have to live with it. And a long story short, I cured myself. Um, and it took about a year, but it was an internal journey, I would say, um,
Incredible.
a spiritual
Incredible.
journey. And I would say the most peace that I found is when I go inward. And and I think it's very important to find peace and be in that state of consciousness, whether you're meditating or whether you're walking in nature. I would say those are kind of the two areas where I find the most peace, when I'm submerged in nature, like, in the Sequoia National Forest, for example.
Beautiful.
Find
Yeah.
so much peace and joy, because we're not meant to be in cubicles. We're not meant to be in the cities. And so it's always good to break away from that and connect back with nature, so you can connect back with your spirit and realize that, all the chaos and stress is happening in the outer world, where our default state is peace, love, and joy.
Love it. Love it. Very good. Now, where can people find this book again?
They can go to Amazon and just pick one up there, or they can go to zerotoengineer.com/book.
Okay, Zero to Engineer. I would encourage everybody out there listening to pick this up, see what you can do with it. I mean, it might lead you to some paths that you are not going to believe, some of the paths like you just heard just now. So, Terry Kim, I have to tell you, I love, love, love what you're doing. You kind of epitomize the message that I've been trying to put out there for so many years, that there's so many ways to be successful, and most of them you have not heard about because
Yep.
there's no impetus for people to tell you about them, because the driving forces or societal expectations aren't going to want that to happen. Okay.
Yeah.
But I'm really, I love what you're doing. I hope you're wildly successful with it. It sounds like you're well on your way. And again, thanks for coming to the Comfort, Peace, and Freedom podcast. And we'll talk to you real soon. Best of luck to you.
Thanks, Ken. Thanks for having me on the show. It was a blast.